long before the trial ever began. He is a nationally known radio host and very well known in this area in particular. He's the creator and the host of Road Patrol Live as well. Mr. John DePietro with us this morning. Good to see you, John. Could we talk a little bit about the sentiment? You always have your finger on the pulse of sort of what's being felt in the courthouse, the emotions. What's being exhibited this Monday morning as everybody's getting ready to start back up?
You know, Julie, it's something that you've kind of hit on, and there are still the pink shirts that are everywhere. No one at this point can deny the intimidation factor that these jurors are facing, and none of us know what's going to happen, but I think it's impossible to look past what happened last Thursday. Now, there are some O'Keefe supporters that have already arrived, and they plan to be here today. So this is a new development, another voice. But Julie, I think something that can't be missed here is the fact that at no point has Karen Read ever instructed her supporters leave the O'Keefe family alone, kind of like call off the dogs. This isn't a great analogy, but as you remember, on January 6th, President Trump was under great pressure to tell his people, leave the Capitol and stop this. At no point has Karen Read ever said to her supporters, and they would follow her, the O'Keefe family should be off limits. Julie, I think they did that. That was deliberate last week because it's really trying to send a message to the jury. We will find you. We know who you are. And they're trying to intimidate this jury.
That's a valid concern, John. I'm glad you brought that up because we've talked a lot about the last couple of days about why this jury wasn't sequestered. And I'm thinking back, I mean, way back when we knew that the judge had to make a ruling on the protesters and the proximity that they could be standing, you know, to the courthouse during the time of trial, so not as to impact the jury one way or the other. I can't imagine the jury isn't affected by this. I mean, John, tell me, when you're there in town, I mean, these streets are being filled up way back from the courthouse, are they not? So when the jury's going in and out on that bus, I would think they'd be exposed to this.
They should. And you know what, Julie, here's the thing. I mean, the state police can only do so much. I'll just say the people in pink, as I call them, or the Free Karen Read people, they don't follow the rules of the buffer zone. They you know, go beyond it. They're all over the streets. You know, they follow and film the bus that has the jurors. They're everywhere. They're hard to ignore. Here's what I think, Julie. I think these jurors now, they realize that maybe they signed on for something more than what they thought. It's the biggest thing that ever happened in their lives. And I just hope this is not the case, but I just wonder if some members of this jury, even though they know the evidence is there, they should come back with a guilty verdict. It may be because of their friends and family. They're just wondering maybe this would almost be a good time to get out. And unfortunately, it's possible that a hung jury may be what they see as almost like an escape route from all this insanity.
You know, John, these are all valid points you're making. And this is just really sad because there were so many things that were not done the right way with this trial. There should have been a gag order. This jury should have been sequestered. So many different things occurred. You know, the prosecution, I mean, their hands were tied, as you know. They weren't allowed to make any extrajudicial statements when the defense was. And we heard only one narrative, and that was never stopped. And so now here we are, we're at the end. And if this jury is hung, as you know, someone else is going to have to fill each of those seats in that jury box again for a retrial. The Commonwealth is not going to let this go. It's going to happen again. And tell me, John, you know, we see what's going on outside the courthouse, but you've seen what's going on in the courtroom. You've been one of the few people who's had a seat there on many days watching the testimony in person. What do you think is going to be the most impactful things for the jury?
Well, first of all, the demeanor of them has changed. I mean, initially, you know, they were very kind of go with the flow and even bubbly and boisterous midweek. At the end on Friday, you could tell there was something up, just the way they kind of had their heads down. I won't say that there's, you know, fighting in between, but they definitely, their demeanor had changed. And then when we got the note, we found out why. Julie, I think maybe, hopefully, the weekend was a chance for them to decompress, really look at the evidence. I want to come back to, there is overwhelming evidence for a guilty verdict here. There's obviously some members of the jury. I think when David Yannetti leaped up and said, you know, we'll take a hung jury, it just showed where they really thought this was at. I think this is going to come down to if some members of the jury, I think the majority of them are voting guilty. A couple more maybe got reticent because they see the circus outside. Who knows? Maybe you become paranoid. Maybe you see a car at the end of your driveway. Maybe your family member's spouse is telling you, you know, you got to get out of this. If they'll do it to the O'Keefes, they'll do it to the jury. But the demeanor of the jury, Julie, it changed dramatically. I'd never seen them like that. I thought, wow, they're more businesslike and heads down. But then we learned that there's obviously some division within the jury. I just hope over the weekend they got rested, they can come back together as a group and deliver the verdict that they agree on and that they know is the right verdict.
Right, John. You know, John, something you said a moment ago, you really got me thinking when you said that you've seen some Free Karen Read supporters following the bus. You know, now it becomes personal for these jurors. You know, it was a civic duty before, and when you're describing the demeanor, how it's changed, you know, everybody comes in, they're ready to hear the evidence. But now, are they scared? I mean, that's a valid question. You know, I would be scared if I'm doing my civic duty and don't have a horse in the race, just try to follow the law and decide the case properly, and you see people following them. Tell me, has anything come up in the times you've been in the courtroom? Has anything ever been addressed about jury tampering? Because this is a very valid concern if there is an attempt to do that by anyone inside the courtroom or outside of the courthouse.
I haven't seen anything inside, but I'll tell you, Julie, it's the whole atmosphere around here. You know, you have people that are just constantly and they're all in the pink, and they all have their phones out, and they're always filming, and they're filming everyone. And a regular person, you know, I'm used to being filmed, police are used to being filmed, you're used to being filmed. A regular person, if suddenly strangers and a group of people are filming them as they're at a red light, or filming them as they're walking in their car, or filming them as they're, you know, anywhere, all around here, there are just, you know, mobs of people, and they're filming all the time, and they walk around with their phones filming people. So it almost creates an atmosphere that anyone around here, if you're not used to it, who would be? It's very disconcerting, and it's uncomfortable. And why is that person filming me? And maybe they have my license plate. It sets up an area of almost paranoia around this whole surrounding area. I don't think the Commonwealth was prepared for it, and I'm not sure they even knew the lengths of how this would go. But it becomes a mind game where then everyone involved, like your every move, almost like Big Brother, but they're being filmed. I think it's a form of intimidation.
I think you're right, John DePietro. This is a really great point you're bringing up. This is something that certainly the court has to be aware of. The court has to be aware of what's going on and what's happening. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, as always. And later in the show, we're going to have one of those members of that group of people who pushed back on Friday that you touched on, John. So thank you for mentioning that. We'll be talking with a woman named Kate
and Julie,
Peter
just know,
at
they
the end
were
of the hour.
totally peaceful, by the way.
They were.
The altercation that took place, that was from the Free Karen Read people. They're the ones who were approaching them. They were the ones that were very aggressive. They were the ones saying vile things. The O'Keefe supporters, they did nothing wrong.
John DePietro, as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Stay safe out there, my friend. We'll look forward to speaking more as we go on that verdict watch. Thanks again. And still to come here on Opening Statements, we're going to take a deep dive.